Shout out to the Cincinnati Bengals YouTube channel for posting this. Today we're reacting to Orlando Pace talks to the legend himself, Anthony Munoz, which obviously him and Willie Anderson absolutely dominant tackles in Cincinnati Bengals history. So let's go ahead and listen up to.
Going to start this conversation by pulling the curtain back a little bit. Orlando, when I mentioned the possibility of joining me on this podcast with Anthony Munoz, you lit up like a Christmas tree. How much do you know about Anthony, and why is this so meaningful for you?
Yeah, man. I mean, I know a lot, obviously just probably more surface level stuff, but it means so much to me, man, just because of, everything that, my family instilled in me about the left tackle position. And, you know, Anthony Munoz is the greatest to do it. And I think statistically that's proven. What he's done on the film shows his gold jacket. And, man, given the opportunity to be able to speak to him, I mean, come on, it's no denying that I was I've been waiting on this moment.
Anthony, Orlando was born in 1996, a few years after your career ended, but he clearly appreciates the greats that played before him. What does that tell you?
Well, it's really meaningful. It's flattering that he would talk about wanting to meet me, wanting to talk. I guess it really goes to the game. I mean, and I'm much older than him, much older. I was older than his dad. But then I look at the guys that, the shoulders I stood on. When I was a kid, I was watching, Art Shell and guys like that. So, it's one of those things where it's great to hear as generations go along that, we can think about the guys that played the same position. And I'm flattered and I'm thrilled to get a chance to meet the young guy.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. I appreciate that, man. That's, I personally feel like that's like the humbling part of football is the guys that came before you, even at your university, on the pro teams you playing, once you get to a certain level in this league, the guys that came before you, you know what I mean? That's who laid out the carpet to give guys an opportunity. And, you being, the type of player you were athletically, height-wise, size-wise, weight-wise, all of that, you're somewhat one of the first. So, man, I mean, it's a true honor.
Well,
also got to keep in mind that, Orlando Brown was drafted at right tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, right? His dad, Zeus, was a huge right tackle for the Ravens for many years. He's transitioning from right tackle to left tackle. Last couple years with the Chiefs, he's actually been pretty dang good at being left tackle. Not many right tackles can transition to left tackle. It's not an easy job to do. First off, right tackle is already hard, but now you're transitioning to the blind side where you're going to get a lot of one-on-one guys. You're going to have to deal with a lot more pressure. And if you mess up on the left side, the right side, bad enough. The left side, the blind side, if you mess up there, you're going to have a crap ton of issues. So also to see, Orlando become more of a great player transitioning from across the line.
Orlando, it's interesting. So many times we think about the pro game, but you mentioned a great thing, the guys that came, before us. And, I look at, you played at Oklahoma, I played at USC, two storied programs. And I look at the guys that really played before me there, way back in the 60s with Ron Mix, Hall of Fame, played a lot of years in the NFL. Ron Yeri, first pick of the draft for the Vikings. And then myself, and then guys after me like Bruce Matthews and Tony Basile, and you got the same thing going. So, I think it's great that as, young guys that are in the league, and even myself, we continue to keep that sense of history and understand and see and appreciate what, what the left tackle or what linemen do. And that's what's fun for me to meet a young guy like yourself that's having a lot of success right now and to finally say, hey, I'm looking forward to, hopefully they bring me back to the preseason because as Dan knows, I do the preseason games, and I'm sure you guys won't be playing a whole lot in the preseason. But week number one, I'll be watching, and then when the games are at home, I'll be in the stands watching. But that's what's fun for me. And I tell people, people ask me, "What about the draft? What do you think about the draft?" I said, you know what? It started for me with the big smile before the draft. The fact that we signed a left tackle, and that to me, I know number 9. Had a big smile, a lot of fans, but I tell you, this old offensive lineman had a big smile when they signed you.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, it was just, coming to be a Bengal, man, it was a clear opportunity. And, money aside, man, I'm all about winning and I'm all about playing the left tackle position to the best of my abilities. And, this was a system under Coach Taylor, Coach Frank Pollock, man. Everything that they asked the offensive tackle to do within the system, I feel like was met my standards and kind of plays to my strengths as a player. And, we've all got our own strengths and weaknesses. And, man, I just feel like what they had to offer in that area, obviously with Joe, being at the helm at quarterback, I mean, that doesn't make it a tough decision either, man. But it all kind of came together. But something I really wanted to ask you though was, we all know your accolades, man. 11-time Pro Bowler, All Pro, 13 years. How were you able to maintain elite consistency? I haven't had the opportunity to make an All-Pro yet. I made the last 4 Pro Bowls, the last 3 at left tackle, and I haven't necessarily done that yet. And that's my plan this year, to be able to turn that corner and be that guy. But how were you able to maintain that level of consistency throughout your whole career?
Well, first of all, I think that's a great goal for you. I mean, the Pro Bowls are great. You're one of 6, I think, when you make the Pro Bowl. When you make All-Pro, you're one of 2 in the entire league, and so that's a great goal. For me, it was year-round, staying consistent, staying in shape, working on my technique. One of the things a lot of people know is that I didn't take a whole lot of time, and this worked for me after my last game, to get back into training my body, letting it recover, and going into it slowly. But I'd already achieved a high level of conditioning during the season, as you know. And you're banged up a little bit, but I continued right after the season, and I knew that I would go out and I'd lift and I'd run, but I'd also work on my technique in the offseason. One of the things I tell young guys, you don't need someone across the line of scrimmage to work on your sets, on your steps. And I just drilled that. That was the way I taught. And I know you got an excellent offensive line coach in Frank Pollock that's all about the technique. So, and I had the attitude that, I was a number 3 pick. I came in, I started on the 3rd day, but I approached every season that I had to earn the job again. I wasn't taking it for granted. After that first year of starting and the second year making the Pro Bowl and all, I erased that and said, okay, as I enter my off season, I have to go back and earn a job. And that was my whole mentality, is that I wanted to work. I wanted to step the volume up in my preparation, get much better in my technique, get in better shape, get stronger. And that's the approach I took. And up until my last year, I was probably going into my year 13, I was a little more banged up, but I was probably in the best shape cardiovascular, because I knew as an older player, you had the younger guys nipping at your heels. So, and just to share this one story, I'll never forget, we had running tests going into mini camps, or, you call them OTAs. And we had a defensive lineman, Tim Crumline, who trained like crazy too. Oh, yeah. So we had to do a half mile and a mile. And, we had like 8.5 minutes. And I looked at Tim and I said, there's no way we're going to take the full 8.5. And we busted out, and all the young guys said, what are you guys doing? Well, first of all, we wanted to really, by example, show them the work ethic. But then on the other hand, I needed to show the coaches that I could still make that half mile or that mile under a certain amount of time. So I think that's the example that especially offensive linemen set for not only other linemen, but for the team, is that, as you know, we don't get all the notoriety, but we can set the pace, the tempo about how we prepare, how we work. And that's how I was trained at USC. And that was really the approach I took until year 13.
And that's the thing about Orlando Brown that's really so crazy is, so he was a 3rd round pick in the NFL draft. A lot of the reason why he was a 3rd round pick was because his NFL draft combine was awful. The guy did not look good in the draft combine. And a lot of times draft combines can make or break a player. It can either make your stock go up, like we saw with Darnell Washington when he had that one-hand catch. A lot of people were talking about him. But also it can make your stock plummet. If you have a bad draft combine, you could go from here to here very quickly. And that's what happened to Orlando Brown. So it's even more of an awesome story to hear a guy that, had an awful combine. Really, a lot of teams just marked him off their board, and now he's able to not only transition from the right tackle position to left tackle, but become literally the best left tackle in the league. I think him and Trent Williams, maybe a couple other guys, are up there, and he's one of the best.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that, wholeheartedly, man. That's somewhat, I don't want to say a forgotten or untold part of the game, but it's one of the most important. I think a lot of times, man, being in it now, being in the sport so often, for me, and I don't know how it was for you, but you see a lot of guys that are talented that don't necessarily love the game, and they kind of lose out on their abilities to be able to maximize and what they can be and who they can be as players. And that was something, man, that I always heard early on was how important your work ethic was and training all those different things. It's something that I've personally gotten better with throughout my career, just because immaturities or whatever reasons coming out. I've always was a hard worker. That's how I earned my job, but in college. But man, it's crazy you say that. I remember, quick little story for me. I remember, man, I want to say it's right around in July of 2015. I think he did a TED talk or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was you talked about moving forward, your mom, encouraging you to move forward. And that was something that really hit home with me, because it was just such a deep message, as somebody obviously that looks up to you, even then, more so now, being in this position. But man, that's something that I've kind of always went back to in my mind was, the mindset and mentality of that.
Yeah. I think as we talk about that, one of the phrases that I get I don't really care for. I know a lot of guys talk about a chip on their shoulder. I don't believe in that, because to me, when you look at it, that you have a chip on a shoulder, that has a tendency to take your focus away from your job. If you look at it that this is just the job I have, and I'm going to make those people, the Brown family or whoever, make them believe they made the right choice. That's it. I could have gone into my draft and said, I got a chip on my shoulder because nobody said I'd get drafted. I missed, but I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it, this is my opportunity. This is my job. I want to keep this job as long as I can at the highest level. And I really believe if you start talking about a chip on your shoulder, and I've heard other guys use that it really takes your focus off what you have to do. And it puts your focus on those that you want to say, hey, look at what I can do, more than like, I got to do my job. And this is what I'm going to do to help the team to be the best. First of all, the best player, the best team player. And and I'll share this real quick. We know this is a team sport. And when I share a lot, I say the only time I was selfish in this team sport was in the off season. I was selfish to get myself as strong as possible, in the best shape, and work on my technique. That's the only time I was selfish. Once I hit the field with my teammates, it was all about team. And that's the approach I took, and I think that's what allowed me to play at such a high level for such a long time.
Yeah, man, I love that, man. I've always been curious, obviously just watching so much film of you and knowing your story. And, this might be a little deep, but, talk to me a little bit about like your mindset, your standard come Sundays. And obviously that preparation starts, as you're saying, in the off season, in training camp with the guys, blood, sweat, and tears, the whole spill. But, talk to me a little bit about like your state of mind on Sundays.
Yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, you have 3 or 4 days of practice before your game. I always looked at that as my preparation. That was getting ready for my final exam. You have however many plays on Sunday, but think about all the reps you have leading up to Sunday. Reps to work on once you've studied the guy you're playing against, what am I going to use against him? What's going to work? And then working on that all week and believing in that. So I enjoyed all the reps that I took during the week. If it was, a thud or full speed for us, or even a walkthrough, I believe you can get better in a walkthrough.
Absolutely.
If you're past that, don't just get out of your stance. Do what you do in full speed, but you're not hitting anybody. Not that you have to, blow everything out in a walkthrough, but you can get better in a walkthrough. So that was my whole mindset. And then come Saturday, we review, and I'll never forget, Jim McNally, who coached me, was along the lines of Frank Paul. Jim would come up to me, and he goes, now you've worked on this. You got to believe in it and trust it. And I said, yep, here's the technique that I believe is going to work. And you go with it. And that was my whole mindset. And I think a lot of the mindset goes back to my freshman year in college. And it's interesting. I retired, and a year after we retired, we moved. We built another house and we moved. I found my freshman playbook from USC. I mean, you're talking 17 years after my freshman year. And I opened it up, and the first page, and this is kind of the attitude I had, the first page, all it said in block letters was dominate. And then you turn the second page and it says, we will dominate from the first play, and by the fourth quarter, they will give in. And that's kind of, with our whole mindset was finish, 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 and just setting once you get in and you believe and you trust what you're going to do. Now, the guy across from you, after the first several plays, you want him saying, oh, this is going to be a long afternoon. This is
no doubt.
And that was the whole, and it might not, we all get beat. We've all gotten beat, but to keep it to a minimum, but have him believe that it's going to be a long afternoon. That's kind of how I built up to when I played on Sunday.
Yeah, no, man, I feel like that definitely showed. I can't tell you how many games I watched, but man, I mean, you had so many battles, obviously some of the best that ever played a game, like Bruce Smith, man, LT, I think you caught him a little bit in there. I remember watching some stuff on him, but man, I mean, just your approach and, sometimes, as you said, man, you will get beat, but I think, man, the one thing you really had about your game that was crazy was your recovery. You know what I mean? It's like, man, a guy may look like he has the edge, but somehow, some way, you got your feet and hips back in front of this guy and boomer size it. You know what I mean? It's insane. You know what I mean? How you were able to do those type of things, man. Are those for you? Were those considered like practice techniques? Was that more of a mindset for you? Obviously, because man, I personally, I understand that if I'm setting a D in and I'm using my inside hand and I feel his shoulder come to me and I can't post back, I'm trained to spin. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've trained my muscle memory I'm going to spin here. If I miss with my inside hand and I know he spins inside, I'm spinning with the spinner, and I see you do that sometimes, whether you're playing a Bruce Smith and, maybe you miss with the first punch and, you feel like he's got an edge, but somehow you get back in front of him. You know what I mean? Is that a trained habit? Is that, just similar for you, muscle memory? Like, how does that work for you?
Trained. I mean, it's all the above. It's stuff that you just got to keep going and do whatever it is, And I would think because they put us at left tackle that they believe we're athletic enough to move out in space. And that's the approach I took. If I did get in that position, one of the things I would do, God blessed me with the, big rear end. So why not, I played basketball in high school. I couldn't jump, but I got a lot of rebounds because I used my body and I knew where the ball was going. So I used my posterior end. So why not? If you feel you kind of, turn, spin, and then recover. But that's the whole thing we worked on. And I was thankful that I had that ability to recover, the recoverability. But it's, again, when you talk about that, what does it boil down to? Attitude. Attitude of regardless of what position you're in, you got to finish the block. You got to finish it however you can.
I love that, dog. I love that, man. Who would you say is the best defensive end you played throughout your career?
Probably the best all around. You mentioned him, Bruce Smith. I mean, I could go down the line, probably give you 10 guys that amazing, but the total package was probably Bruce Smith. I mean, size, speed, length, smarts. And it was obvious because they could cock him over the nose and he could play inside with his size just as effective. But I think there's about a half dozen guys I played my career that are in the Hall of Fame. So
no doubt.
Yeah, so
no doubt.
I caught guys early in their career like Bruce, and then I caught guys late in their career like Elvin Bethea with the Oilers and Cedric Hart.
Oh yeah,
guys like that. And then there's some guys that don't get enough credit. Like you had Howie Long on one side of the Raiders, but then you had Greg Townsend. The guy was amazing. So Clyde Simmons and Sean Jones and Fred Dean, Leroy Selman. I saw Leroy Selman twice in the first 5 weeks of my rookie year. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, welcome to the NFL.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, probably one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, but one of the toughest competitors. He's probably in my top 5. And I saw it twice preseason, and then opening up my rookie year. I'm thinking, okay, here we go, NFL. Time to strap it up.
Oh man, that's the best though. Nothing like competing against greats. Something I did want to ask you though was, man, are there any regrets that you have in your career? Whether that be, it's personal, you know what I mean, but just as far as with family, as far as with what happened on the field, or anything like that. Obviously because you're a Hall of Famer, and you were the greatest to ever do it at the position, and I'm just curious, man. No one man is perfect, so I'm just curious.
Perfect. Nobody is. Mm-hmm. But I can say that I was taught. I had a lot of great mentors. I was taught to prioritize things, and like I said, my workout was, that was it. But really deciding to prioritize my life with my wife, my kids, and my football. And I really believe the way I was taught, I was able to do that. I was able to put everything I could into football, but at the same time, I was able to really make my family a priority. So as far as regrets, maybe I didn't learn to pass rush, and I couldn't rush Montana on that 92-yard drive that when they beat us to the Super Bowl. Maybe that's the only regret, man. I wish I had to spin or up and under the swipe to get in there and maybe tackle them on 3rd and long. We win the Super Bowl, but no, Orlando. I can really say that I really don't have any regrets as far as the game itself. I felt like I gave it everything when I could. And I was, that was one of the things after, only playing one healthy season at USC. I wanted to play 10 plus years. And every time I put the uniform on, I wanted to be next to my guys. And I was able to do that for just about my entire 13 years with the Bengals.
Man, that's awesome, man. That's a beautiful thing, man. That's so cool. I also wanted to ask you too about, just some of your relationships with some of your left guards that you played next to, man. I know you didn't play next to many, I would believe, as a Bengal. Yeah. But, I'm just curious on, your relationships with some of these guys. You know what I mean? Just how far they are, are you still friends with them? How was it when you guys were playing? How much time was spent together? Like, I'm just curious.
No, that's a great question. And, and I tell people, unlike the game nowadays, when I tell people I played 13 years with the Bengals and had one line coach, they're like, what? And crazy. I played, and Dan might have the stats, but I think I played next to Bruce Reimers for like 7 or 8 years, maybe 6 or 7. I played next to Dave Lapham for 4, who we're still best of buds. I mean, Lap
is the man.
He's my guy, man. When I got inducted, I took Dave Lapham to my hometown in Southern California when they did all these things for me at home when I was getting inducted. And they said, we'd like for you to bring one teammate. And I could have chose a bunch of them, but I took Lap. So I played my first 4 years next to Lap and about maybe 6 or 7 next to Bruce Reimers. And, of course, he always stayed in Iowa. I've seen him a couple of times since they started bringing guys back. But I'm sure we get together and it's like we haven't missed a beat. And then a couple other guys, Bruce Kozerski, who played guard center, they're still in town. So we still have a lot of the guys that I played with. And really, the only guy is Bruce Reimer stayed in Iowa, so I don't see him a whole lot. But we communicate now and then, and it was amazing because, as you know, I mean that left guard it means everything. Not only the
absolutely,
especially that left guard, and to be able to play next to 2 guys for the majority of my career, I feel really blessed and fortunate to be able to do that.
Man, I hear you, man. Because I just coming off a Super Bowl with Joe Tooney out there in KC. And we spent the last 2 years together. Before that, for me, it was Marshall Yonda in Baltimore on the right side a little bit. Man, just that bond that's created, when you're in battle with that guy for a whole game and it's just you two versus another 2 set of men whose families and loyalty and all this stuff is on the line. And, man, just that bond and relationship that's created within battle, man. I'm just always curious, just about the, transition of the game and kind of how that goes.
That's great. Now I got a young left tackle, young left guard. We can see you and Volsa next to each other for 8, 9, 10 years. So
that's the plan. That's the plan, man.
Number 9 there for about another, 10, 15, and have you guys on the left side, and we're fine.
No doubt, man. Last question for you. I don't think we got much time, but last question for you, man. I did a little bit dive into you a little bit, obviously like growing up and stuff. And, I just was always curious, being a Mexican American, man, just kind of like what you experienced. Cause you're, growing up in California, I'm guessing, during the 70s, man, it had to, or, late 60s and 70s had to be, somewhat different. So, I just was curious on the type of culture and people you grew up around.
I had a great upbringing. I lived in a really diverse area. And you're right, 60s and 70s out in LA were not the greatest. But I lived in a part just east of LA, about 40 miles. And, I mean, there was 3 of us. We were like the 3 musketeers, and we'd go to each other's house. I had a white guy, a black guy, and a brown guy. The 3 of us, man, we played baseball together. And I think I'd have to say, a little biased, they probably enjoyed my mom's homemade tortillas more than the other food. But we used to go to each other's house, eat, have meals with each other. We used to hang out. So it was pretty diverse, and my high school was pretty diverse. So I was fortunate growing up. My whole family's from Mexico. I was born in the States, but always been proud of the culture and trying to represent the Latino community. And it's been important because I hear a lot of feedback, because especially as you get more, the Latinos playing in the NFL, guys, watching you and stuff as they're growing up. But so the culture was pretty cool. I had a great upbringing. It wasn't the best. We didn't have a whole lot, but it didn't matter because as long as I had, my family and school and sports, I was set, man. It's just the summertime. I played baseball all summer. Then I got to high school and started playing some football along with baseball and basketball. But things went pretty well. I never experienced any pushback, anything that affected me. As far as people really being any different to me. So it was good that I grew up where I did, and then I came back here. It was a little different when I got to Cincinnati. Couldn't find any Mexican food,
No doubt.
A lot of people are going crazy about Taco Bell, and there's a restaurant here, Dan. I don't know if Dan's even old. Chi-Chi's. They had a restaurant called Chi-Chi's.
Oh, yeah. I remember Chi-Chi's from back in the day. Absolutely.
Orlando.
Wait, Chi-Chi's is gone? I didn't. Wait, hold up. What do you mean from back in the day? Am I that old? I thought Chi-Chi's was still here. Wow. Okay, I feel old.
You're like this since you asked me a question. The first mistake I made when I got to Cincinnati, one of my first interviews, because we looked all over for Mexican food. I said one of the only things I love. As soon as we got to Cincinnati, I fell in love with Cincinnati. I mean, it was.
Same.
But I in the interview, I said I have one problem. I can't find any good salsa. And I can't. And so that was a mistake because after that article came out, every restaurant I went into, the cook came out with salsa. It was a Japanese steakhouse. It didn't Italian. They came out with salsa. Here, try this. You got to smile. Okay, but as time went by, we got some pretty good Mexican food. But so it was. I enjoyed growing up in my culture, and really had no problems with it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's it's crazy you talk about Cincinnati. That's like the best part of being here, man, is the love in the city. You know what I mean? It's you know how much they love their football. You know how important it is to them, and that same energy is reciprocated, man, from within and myself and yourself. So, man, I'm so thankful for you taking some time to talk to me and everything, man. I really appreciate you.
Love it. When Dan contacted me and asked, I said I'd love to do this. I want to meet the guy.
Yeah.
Now I know I'll be, rooting, even if I hadn't met you, I'll be rooting you on. But I don't get down there a whole lot until camp. But I'll pop my head in there now and then. Be the preseason. If they ask me back to do the broadcast, I'll be back. But I'll watch you. I'll be watching you, and hopefully we can go out and grab a bite to eat down the road here when you have some time. That's
freaking amazing. Absolutely amazing. Again, I think, in my personal opinion, because I know not everyone agrees with this, especially what I thought was funny is the people who are the biggest haters on him are Chiefs fans who are like, oh, well, he's nearly not that good. You guys didn't get really that good of a player. Like, bro, we just stole your gold. Calm down. But no, he's going to be an absolute monster for us for a very long time. He's going to be a franchise guy. And you don't usually get that in any player you sign, usually. Usually you sign somebody and they're going to be good for a certain amount of time, right? But usually you don't get a franchise player. We got ourselves a franchise left tackle for the next 5-10 years. So I can't wait to see how, many Super Bowls we can win under actually having Joe Burrow protected. Imagine having Joe Burrow actually protected. This is going to be dangerous for the rest of the league, guys. This is going to be dangerous for the rest of the league. I'll see you guys in the next one, though. Peace out.